you start recording and everyone got really, really quiet. Or maybe it's just I'm the one who does all the talking, and so I stopped talking and it got quiet. One of those.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Right? It's 2023.
How was the show, Phil?
Ooh.
It was awesome. They played a bunch of songs I didn't know because that's what they do at acoustic benefit shows for the first half, and then the second half was like a kind of normal set. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Sweet.
We were like 8 rows back.
Nice.
So we're really close. Which normally I'd be in the front, but for a charity show, like the first few rows are always like reserved for, movie stars and stuff like that. So being 8 rows back, I was pretty stoked with that.
That still seems like it's pretty close by my standard. Yeah. That's closer than I would normally be sitting at most shows. So that's good. Seems fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty small theater. I think the Microsoft Theater holds like 3,000 or 4,000 people. It's not huge.
Cool. Who did you see again? Remind us.
Metallica. It's always Metallica.
All right. Cool.
It's always Metallica.
Always. All right.
I think it was show number 189 for me or something like that. I'd have to go check.
It's a lot. All right, Kaya, you wanna start? Am I starting? You starting? I'm letting you run a lot of this today.
Well, I hope everybody got a chance to take a brief look, at least, at the agenda that I put in the channel on Slack. We do have a couple of, so last month's meeting, everybody was pretty much on vacation, but we did talk about some pretty important things about our organizational changes. And I will let Jeff go ahead and recap that real quick. And then we can move on to some great news.
Sure. I think the realignment is great news too, actually, but it's interesting. So yeah, for anyone who wasn't, I know we only had a couple people last month and I don't know how many people got to watch the video. So the quick recap is there was a fairly substantial realignment across all of Progress that went live at the start of our fiscal year, and we're a December 1 fiscal year, not January 1. And the sort of driving force behind it was trying to realign. Progress has obviously a history of buying up companies and buying new technologies and things, but they haven't historically been maybe as strategic about aligning like-minded products and like-minded spaces in the same place so that we can actually build off each other and be more effective together with some of the other brands, products, companies that are part of the Progress family. And so the company is trying to change that and be more purposeful about how it thinks about the tech and the companies it acquires and where they fit in our broader organization. So we've always had sort of these generically named Core A, Core B, Core C things in our company, which didn't really mean anything. And Chef was basically Core C, or as I could say, Core C basically was Chef. Now we're divided into 3 a little more purposeful business units, and Chef is part of an infrastructure management business unit. Chef is still the largest single piece of that BU. But it means that the products that came over when Progress bought Kemp, a year and a half or so ago, are part of our business unit as well, which is Flowmon and WhatsUp and Loadmaster, and then our product WhatsUp Gold is part of the Infra BU as well. So you may hear people from Progress talking about Infra like as a business unit, and that is really just the business unit inside Progress where Chef resides. In the future, as and when Progress may end up acquiring any other companies that have products in a similar space, whether that's software or network infrastructure management and automation, security, compliance, automation, those sorts of things, they will fall into our BU. Now, what does that mean for DevRel and community? Right now, not a ton, because right now, our primary charter, mine, Kaya's, is still 90%. I mean, Kaya's is really 100% focused on Chef, and I'm really 90% focused on Chef still right now. Over time, we'd love to find ways to integrate and work with communities or build communities around the other products that are part of our BU. And when that happens, that does fall under me. I am kind of shifted over and up, I guess, and report still directly to Ed Kiesling, who is our senior VP in charge of engineering for our whole BU. And so I'm always looking at ways that we can integrate with and collaborate with other communities. But for now, we're still almost entirely focused on Chef, because Chef is what has a community today that we're working with. So not a lot of impact to the people on this call, but just at least you're aware. So if you hear new terms or if you have questions about it, I don't want to use too much of like the hour that we have to talk about it today, but you know, ping me a DM in Slack or something if anyone wants to talk about it. I'm happy to talk more about it or have one-on-one answer questions, et cetera, et cetera. Any questions like right off the bat that any of you here think, oh wait, I need to know about something on it? Because if not, we'll talk on the community initiatives. Cool. All right, Kaya, what's first?
Next.
Or next?
Well, community summits. There we go. We're actually gonna be doing them. That's awesome.
Yeah, gonna happen.
So what, like, so give them the spiel, Jeff. I mean, we've got, you know, so a couple of ideas for locations, right? And
Yeah.
we're looking to do at least one in Q2, correct?
I have blessing now from, so this is interesting. One thing that's kind of interesting and unique maybe about the way DevRel is built today inside of our BU and inside of Chef is that even though I report to Chef Engineering, when it comes to things like events, it's not my budget. The budget comes from a centralized, like a corporate field marketing and events budget. And so I need to get allocations or requisition of funds for these things from someone on the Progress corporate side. I don't have the actual numbers like secured with a chunk of money earmarked for me yet, but I have approval from the person who owns that money saying, yes, we'll do it. And not only will we do it, but I was pleasantly surprised when I last met with her that when I suggested that I recognized and already told our community that we would probably only be able to do 2, at least in the first year, and see how it goes, her response was, well, I don't know. I don't see why we can't do more than that. So that was a good sign. Now, whether Kaya and I have the manpower and like the human capital support to actually plan and run more than that this year remains to be seen, but we're working on that. We believe that we are most likely, not 100%, but most likely looking at one community summit back, kind of bringing back home to Seattle, and one in Europe. I talked to Patrick, who's on. Hi, Patrick. I talked to Patrick and Thomas, the Tech Racer guys, yesterday morning for a while, and we're going to try to do one in Germany. Is where we are heavily leaning right now. Either probably Frankfurt, possibly Munich, depending on the time of year and which cities are the most convenient to do it, depending on the weeks we have. The company is okay, and I say the company, like Dee Sarsfield, who is the events person corporate, she lives over in Ireland. She's the person who owns the budget for this. She's okay trying to do both of those in Q2. I don't know if that's really feasible. And in talking to Thomas and Patrick yesterday, even from a calendar standpoint, because of some things already scheduled that they know about in May, and then the extended summer holidays that most places in Europe take to a much larger degree than we take in the States. It might be harder in the late spring through summer months to get the people we want. And so it may be more likely that we do that one in the fall, but that's under consideration. Regardless of all of that, they are a go. We're looking at dates and coordinating on those, but certainly by next month I'll have dates, and I may have them sooner to share with the community. If I get that info, I'll share it with this group in Slack. And then eventually we need to start actually going to the broader community Slack and everywhere else and start actually telling people about it, other than the handful of people in this council. Once we have real solid dates that are like marked in black ink on the calendar. Right now, the plan for what those look like is still the same as we talked about last month and the month before, which is some content from our teams, getting our people involved in the open spaces in the afternoons. We have some two-way communication about where the products are today, where they've been coming from, and where we think we're headed. And then a hackathon on day 2 with some sort of social event in the evening. One reason I talked to Patrick and Thomas yesterday And something I need Steph, with you and Lyra on, I want to talk to you all at some point soon too, because one thing we're looking at is, are there ways that we can also more purposefully include some of our kind of key strategic, qualified partners, consulting partners to get involved in these. One, because you know where the people are, because we have the experience building the product. You have the experience like building the solutions with a lot of different customers and clients. I think having technically, savvy, sound people from some of those partners present is going to be good for the events. And we want to find ways that we can both deliver value and get value kind of to and from with some of those key partners. So we were talking about that with the Tech Racer guys for the European event. Would love to talk with TAP here and others who might be interested in doing that on the partner side for the US based event as we start to move forward. What else? What else, Kaya? And then what questions?
I think you covered everything. It's from a community summits perspective. I guess, yeah, if there are any questions, let's talk through them.
I think my first question is that sleeping Gala on Lyra. That just looks so adorable.
Wait, which is it? Oh,
Lyra's got a bird.
I didn't even notice the bird was there.
I was just like looking, and then it was just like a bird. I'm like,
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
there. And then, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Maybe
Sorry,
we can
I
do
just had
something in
to-
Denver if you'll bring the bird. Okay. Oh, I have a question for my I don't know,
Yourself?
am I muted? Or
Oh,
you-
I was muted. She's 8 months old. Her name is Jojo. And woo, my husband got her for me for my birthday.
That's pretty fantastic.
And she
And she
was
likes
making
you.
intermittent noises, so I was muted because I didn't want her to interrupt. But can you step back?
What do you
Her
need?
noises are probably better than my noises. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, any questions, concerns, or anything about community summits?
I have one.
You have one. So Jeff.
This is for everyone who's here and anyone else that you know from the community, whether they have been part of this council or just otherwise. The hackathon half of it, like I would love technical support and help from our community actually structuring and building the hackathon. I have some experience running hackathons, but not a ton. I don't know how much experience Kai has running them, but more importantly, of all the people on this call, I am the least technically qualified around Chef's tools compared to everyone else who's here. And so in terms of setting up good ideas and getting that in place and making sure we have the right, just everything squared away the way it should, I'd love any support we can get as we start working towards planning, because I know some or all of you have been involved in them before and will have awesome ideas. So
the way that these were always done in the past was there were sort of, I would say intentionally, not very much structure around them. The idea was that during the open spaces the day before, as people were like talking about the things they want to see and getting ideas and like hashing things out with Lamont or Tim or whoever, they would kind of agree on something and be like, oh man, that's totally the way we should do that. And then the next day at the hackathon, they would just start working on it, right? Like of the, I don't know, maybe dozen or so hackathons I've done in the past with Chef, there's always been plenty of work to do and no structure around it. That doesn't mean we can't have structure, but just looking back at like what's been successful in the past, it's always been a let the things that come out of the community summit like actually fuel the hackathon, as opposed to hey, here's what Progress is excited about or would like to see or whatever. It's much more about like, well, the community comes together and says, crap, we really don't have a solution for X, or oh man, I've always wanted there to be feature Y, but I know it's going to be low priority and Progress is never going to do it, but I have the time, I have off work, it's a Friday, I'm just going to spend all day doing it, but I really don't know that code well enough. Is so-and-so around to answer questions when I get stuck, which, in past would have been Lamont or Tim, and these days is probably like Thomas or whoever else. And so that would be my recommendation, but it doesn't mean we can't do it a different way.
Okay.
That makes
That's-
sense to me. You know, it's interesting. That actually makes me think about one other thing that I haven't said yet, and I want honest feedback from everyone here about it. But before, so, you know, originally what I was hearing from people internally was, well, if you're going to do the hackathon, like, how are we going to then make sure that we can leverage and use those things that we built at the hackathon? It's like, well, and I kept trying to say, I don't think the goal is to put together a community summit for people to come and build things for us for free. Like that's not gonna be very successful. I already tried sharing that and there was some resistance there. But I think what puts me in a better position to argue that point now is the structure of day one and the benefit I think that Progress will be able to feel like they're getting from day one in terms of the feedback, even if they aren't getting engineering work that, you know, goes into what Progress is, what they care about, you know, is there will be real give and take feedback, meaningful dialogue that helps us grow the product and helps us hear where the gaps are, helps us hear from our community of users about like what is working, what isn't, which helps us prioritize our own backlog better. That's meaningful value we still got out of the summit that we can give back to the product team and the engineering team. Another thing, and this is the thing I want the feedback on, not that I know that I have a whole lot of choice anyway, but I'm going to throw it out there. So, like I said, the budget is coming from Dee, and she, what her actual role is, she has all the event budget, but she is in charge of both field marketing and demand gen, right? For all of our business unit and all of what used to be the Core A business unit. And obviously, community, the kind of community that we do, is not field marketing and demand gen, right? We're not sales. Brand awareness, sure, you know, getting good dialogue going, sure, but not sales. And one thing that I was asked is last year, there were a couple of moderately successful road shows that Progress did. I don't know if there were any in the States, but there was one in Singapore, there was one in Australia. And I was asked by Dee, can we have one of those alongside your community summit? And I said, well, why? Like, to what end? And she goes, well, because then we can also invite some like more decision maker and senior people in who can be there and talk to us. And if you're asking us to actually use, you know, travel budgets are limited for a lot of companies right now, including ours. So if you're asking us to send a dozen people or more from Progress to be on site, we have an additional reason to be there because we can set up after hours meetings and things like that. And we can set up some demos and we can have people come by and kind of see the more direct product marketing side of what's going on. And what I said is, I said I would bring it to our advisory council and see what they think. My inclination was to say, I think that's okay, as long as it's not become suddenly a product marketing event where they give us a room to like do our community thing. I was like, it has to be very clear that this first and foremost, this is a community summit. We're getting together with the community. And if you want to also, as a side thing, have a space where you can have some conversations to show off products, and the people who are there for the community summit don't have to feel like they are being marketed to and don't have to participate in the roadshow side, and they aren't being pressured to that, then I feel like it's okay. But I didn't actually say yes. I said that I gave her my impression. So like, I'm curious, A, does what I'm saying make sense? B, do you agree? And C, if you don't agree, but I have no choice because the person who's paying for the thing is in charge of, you know, the product marketing side, how can what guardrails can we put in place to make sure the community summit is truly a community event and people don't feel turned off by it? Like, how do we make sure that we segregate to make sure everyone's happy? Those are a lot of words, but I just wanted to get it all out there.
My initial thought is I don't have a problem with two similar, or well, I guess not that similar events being sort of physically located. My concerns would be all of the ones you expressed eloquently. So I think you're on the right track there. The only other one I would add would be, I think one of the benefits of the community summits was the sort of evening time, right? Like going out and being at a bar with the other developers and building a relationship outside of just the, like, we're sitting in the conference room whiteboarding stuff, which is very useful, but also there's the other side of it of like, I'll give you a really good example. When I was at Facebook, and we pushed really hard for some big features and kind of threw our weight around, and and a lot of the developers got kind of frustrated that they ended up having to change their roadmap because of Facebook. Going to a community summit and having beers and kind of chatting about like why we thought that was not just useful for Facebook but useful for the community at large and blah blah blah, and them understanding that Facebook wasn't trying to throw their weight around, it's just sort of how it came off, like built a really good relationship moving forward, so that when we submitted bugs or PRs or support requests or whatever, like it was seen in a different light. And I think those sorts of things are important. And that's an example from a big company, but I think the same thing's true for an individual contributor who's in the open source world, who doesn't have a big company behind them, sitting down and being like, I know this feature seems out of the blue, but here's why I think it would help all of your customers in the next 5 years. Like that happens much easier in a restaurant or in a pub or whatever. And so making sure that all of the evening time doesn't get filled up with sort of demos or meeting with big customers or whatever, and that the evening times are open to the community stuff. I think that would be the other concern I would try to mitigate. And I think if you can mitigate the concerns you referenced and that one, I don't see any problem if it helps them send out, if it helps garner the budget to send out the important people.
Yep, I hear all that. And I appreciate it. We absolutely intend to have, I plan to have an evening event that is social, that is for all the reasons you said, and then some. Also just we haven't been able to be together in person in so long. Like people just want to be together. And so I absolutely intend to do that. My expectation would be that the people coming from Chef, especially the people who are like engineering and product, my expectation would be they would be spending most or all of their evening in that social setting as well. It is possible that people who come who are more on the sales side of the house, who have accounts and things, they might go off and have dinners or do things or whatever in the evening and then come back and rejoin us. Like if I've got a customer architect who comes to join us, and one of the reasons they've come is because they brought 30 people to the community summit from 3 different major customers, and those people are there, but then they also want to go out and like have drinks with a VP or decision maker that evening. That's their job, right? So, but I would hope that the engineering and technical talent, they don't need to be at those, sales meetings and dinners. They normally wouldn't be anyway. So that they'd probably honestly rather be drinking with us to begin with. So yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's how it would be. So I will re-stress that point. I think next week I have tomorrow I am actually meeting with Dee, but it's actually about the future of ChefConf in 2023 or 2024 and what all that looks like. I don't have any information there right now because we're just starting to talk about it. But I may try to keep her for an extra 10 minutes and just sort of touch base and let her know that we all had this conversation to make sure we keep things moving. So I'll stress those points. Other thoughts from anyone else in the room?
I'm so sorry if I just missed it. I was listening for like a time frame where like a season when this might happen. Did I totally just miss that?
Maybe. Or maybe I thought I said it and I didn't. So we are targeting at least one of them in second quarter. The one in the US is the most likely one to be in the second quarter, which would be the one that we're thinking will be in Seattle. Most likely, in order to give us enough time to put it all together, given that it's already mid-January and everything else, I would guess it's going to be likely sometime maybe in May-ish. I can't tell you specifically dates because not only do I need to make sure that it doesn't conflict with any other major industry events, I also need to make sure that it doesn't conflict with anything on our corporate events team's calendar and all that. But I would expect sometime around then. It can't really be into June because my June is shot because of KCDC. So I would hope and expect it'll be sometime in May. And then the European one could be in Q2, although because of summer holidays and all that, it may end up pushing to the fall, the one we do in Germany, so that people are back from their summer holidays with their families and they can all come and participate. And we're not asking people to carve out from their holidays because they're not going to do that. I wouldn't do that. So that's that is the thought. And we may do more than those two this year, it sounds like, because of these, I want them to be successful. Like one thing that's key is, and we'll need to figure out and define what the metric for success is. I think that numbers and participation is good. Output from the hackathon is good. I've stressed again internally that This isn't a sales funnel event, so like getting leads and extensions and contracts out of this thing is not the goal or the target, and shouldn't be an expectation of Chef. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. Like if we get a good conversation out of it, great, but it's just gravy. It's not the goal. But if we can have a successful event, then it'll be really easy for me to go back and say, we need to do, 2, 3, 4 more of these. Let's keep going. I'll tell you what, Carl, since you're here, I had one of my product marketing people ask me if I would do a thing in South Africa. She asked me last week, like, and unprompted by me. She's like, she heard about a few different things going on in Cape Town and Johannesburg. And she's like, I want to do a thing in South Africa.
Yeah, do it. Do it in the wine route. Do it in, I'm sure people will love it.
I will come and do an event in South African wine country. You don't have to ask me twice, as long as I have budget for it. So we may even do that. The EMEA region that Germany is in, like our salesy region for me, right? It's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So it's not that we're only looking to do them in London and in Frankfurt. Like there are other places, South Africa and others, that we would love to have events in the future. So I'm trying to not make it just US and Western Europe all the time. Okay, I said that I was going to let Kaya talk, and now it's half an hour in, and I'm still talking. So
Before we move on, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
You had mentioned the conversations you're having internally on sort of selling the hackathon and other value for the company. One other thing that might be worth mentioning is if people there's, I don't know, a dozen or so PRs out there of people trying to add small features, for example, that like the conversation of, hey, you're kind of approaching this wrong, is trying to get described in text, which is, I think, actually quite challenging when people are approaching a small feature really incorrectly because they don't understand the bigger code base. One of the things that the hackathon can often accomplish is when people come out and all of a sudden can talk to somebody who can walk them through the code and be like, here's what you're missing, here's the thing you need, and kind of work with them to get that feature merged. That has a bunch of benefits for the company, not least of which is some feature that a bunch of people wanted but is low priority getting merged, but also somebody who then better understands the code base, so that when they're working on a feature that maybe Progress does care about, they understand better and can actually get that merged. And people don't walk up and see 200 PRs that have been sitting there for 2 years and wonder, does that Progress actually care about open source, when they actually do, but also the metrics don't look like they do.
Yep.
So that's another thing that can really help here, that isn't maybe the top line thing Progress would see, but also valuable to Progress in the larger sense.
super valuable. Not only because it helps us get some of those PRs merged in that we do want to see merged, but in addition, and you got to figure out where to slide this time in, but there can even be an opportunity, whether it is just one of the open spaces or it's time that we carve out during the hackathon day that we can set aside, for people who are interested, even if you haven't been a current contributor, but you're interested in this sort of thing, you're here for a hackathon, you want to be doing this stuff. If you want to know more about it, we'll carve out an hour, come sit with George Westwater, and he'll talk you through the process of what you need to know and what you should be prepared for, and what you should expect in actually submitting a PR in the future if you see something you want to do. And here's what the roadblocks and hurdles are that you need to be aware of, so you know what that process looks like. Not only does that help us get the outstanding PRs in, but it maybe helps us cultivate new contributors in the community who want to do that. And I will tell you that while that may not be a product marketing and sales goal, my actual real direct boss, the VP of engineering, that is a goal for him. When he came over from Core A into the new Infra BU to head up engineering, he has told me in no uncertain terms that he would love to see the community. He didn't have the history and understand that we used to have a lot more of this to begin with. And he would love to see more opportunity to have engineering contributions from the community who do some of those smaller PRs, who see things and feel confident getting in there and helping out. He wants to grow that. So that will speak to him, and he's my boss. So that's good. Cool.
Yeah, and when Jeff passed that down, I was like, our community is going to be excited to hear that. Yeah, I figured that much. Cool. Any other comments, questions, concerns about community summits before we move on to our podcast?
What's next?
The podcast.
Hmm.
Hashtag Infra Matters. So I remember a couple of months ago, like maybe one of our first meetings that we talked about, the possibility of starting a podcast, just to kind of get like some thought leadership content out there, talk to, folks who are leaders in the industry and in the DevOps and infrastructure space, and kind of make a safe space for folks to or to amplify folks' voices and to encourage thought leadership throughout the DevOps space. And so I put together like a couple of, or actually a season's worth of episodes that I will go ahead and share for the #InforMatters podcast. This is kind of an experiment to get started. So eventually what you all will see is I'll probably like start pinging to see if folks on this call and other folks within the community that that have certain specialties would like to come on and contribute and be a part of the podcast. And the premise is going to be moderated discussions and also some moderated debates, friendly debates. But what I really would like to do is to be a little bit controversial. I think, a lot of learning can happen when people, when experts of like opposing viewpoints, like chat and kind of try to, I guess, present their viewpoint in a way in which it's kind of convincing, I think that would be like a really good place to start from a entertainment and or edutainment perspective. So you will see that coming down the line. Probably do some internal folks to get it started and kind of get viewership up, and then branch out and ping the community and kind of get that spun up, so that way we can have, when we get you guys on, we're not having 1 and 2 viewers. We can actually have some really good viewership at that point. So you will see that coming down the line in the next couple of months. This is just kind of really high level so far, but I am going to share in the channel what episodes that I have thought of so far. And feel free to give some feedback. Feel free to, have, if there's any episodes that you feel like would be good on the podcast and that you might want to be a part of, feel free to say so. This is like in the idea phase, so really flexible at this point, but we just kind of want to get some content going. Any questions, comments about that before we move on to office hours?
Well, I'd be willing to be a part of that podcast at some point.
Awesome.
Same.
Yeah.
And what platforms are you planning to deploy it to?
So have to figure out definitely like the regular podcasting platform. So like Apple Podcasts and the like, but also, so we want to do pre-recorded, right? We don't want to make it live. And we're going to do audio only for now. So we'll probably have them on YouTube for sure, but I have to do some research on like the popular podcasting platform. So we'll probably try to figure out how to get it before, we start recording. We'll know exactly where we're going to get it syndicated. So we'll probably this probably is not going to happen in the next month. There definitely will be more. We'll have another community advisory council meeting prior to us actually launching this. This is just kind of like a teaser, like, hey, this is what's coming down the pipe, and it'll be a little bit more fleshed out next time we chat.
About Twitch, Patrick, I see your comment. We have a Twitch channel, right, or Progress has several Twitch channels. That's where the How to Human show, which we broadcasting tomorrow, is on Twitch because it's live, but I never think of Twitch as a place to do like a podcast, right? I think of Twitch as a place where you're doing live interaction, like a video show, whereas this is more like an audio podcast that is really intended to like you load it up to your Apple Podcast library kind of thing, right? Like, have you used Twitch for podcasts?
Not well. It's just based on the however you're doing podcasts. It's like I just mentioned Twitch for that because we're doing AWS user groups in Hanover and around it. And the impact is pretty nice because several people are not coming to Hanover because they don't have the time for it because it starts at 7 p.m.
Right.
But they are joining from their private PC, and then we have, because Hanover is not the big AWS base. The base for AWS is more like, hey, there's people from Hamburg, from Frankfurt, Munich, whatever. But they are still joining. So we have nearly 30 to 50 people that are joining via Twitch, and this is great. Beside the amount of people that there are sometimes 10 to 15 on site in person. So
Yeah, I think
Just-
Twitch is
just
awesome
some
for, like,
thoughts on
live.
it.
For, like, if we end up pivoting and want to do it as a live show, especially, I would definitely, because we have a corporate StreamYard account. So we actually use StreamYard, and then we can simulcast out to Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Twitch. We can push them out to all those places, and they actually, and then StreamYard aggregates the live comment thread back to one back-end studio for us. So like that's how we do when we broadcast How to Human. I just don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to doing a live Info Matters either, but I see why, at least at the beginning, maybe not maybe not what we want to do. Well, but it makes sense. I hear you.
yeah, no, it's fine for me. I just wanted to mention it.
Good call out. Appreciate you. Yeah, like I think we could do it probably when we get things actually rolling, and this is a smooth, well-oiled machine. We could probably start doing them live. Pre-recorded to start probably is a good way to go,
Weirdly enough, I've discovered like my latest like podcast that I listen to via TikTok. So like take clips of just like spicy moments and like post them to TikTok. And it's not necessarily like a real time thing. I think that they're recording it probably like through some sort of like streaming thing already. But if you do record it and you're able to like grab things, you could like post like segments or like little like snippets to like entice people on different platforms. Because all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, this is a podcast, and now like I listen to it when I'm in the car. But
yeah,
Like,
that would be
the youths
That
via
is a-
TikTok.
yeah.
All
that-
those young,
If
youthful.
we have a TikTok account.
I
I
wonder-
asked for a meeting with the person who runs our social media because I think she's more used to using social media for like pre-planned scheduled tweets and posts, right? Like, and marketing things, but I don't know right now that she's as tuned in to like keeping an eye on community stuff and reposting or resharing those things. So I've been meaning to talk to her anyway. So I'll see what other platforms we have access to. That's
that is a good
an
idea.
interesting idea.
I mean, I really do think, especially considering the format where it's, kind of like a debate, like nobody's gonna win at the end. There's not like a, a winner of the topic, but I do think there's like a really good opportunity for some cool sound bites and some, provocative type of content there, like short bites. So that's a really good idea.
also, if it wasn't clear from my samesies, I'm also down.
For being on the show.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Did you submit your abstract to KCDC yet?
No, I haven't. I've not gotten very far working on my ideas.
You have 8 days.
I know. I was looking at it this morning. I was like, I'm gonna see Jeff. I was like, I got 8 days.
8 days.
Days.
By the way, before we move to the next topic, I'm going to switch hats for a moment and shamelessly plug my own developer community conference. So I've mentioned KCDC a whole bunch, I know. It's like our 14th year. It's June 21st to 23rd in Kansas City. Yeah, I know I don't live in Kansas City, but it's like a 4-hour drive. And our call for papers is open now. It's been open, but it's open now through 10 p.m. Central Time next Friday, the 20th. And so like we have a whole DevOps track, we have a cloud track, we have a security track, we have various language tracks. And so the conference runs 180 sessions, 15 rooms wide. So it's a pretty broad event. It's a day of workshops and then 2 days of sessions. 2,000 person community developer and tech conference. So if you have things in the relevant spaces that you just haven't been able to get in front of and want to give like in-person talks to an in-person audience again, and you're pining for that, there's an opportunity to do that because we'll have our show in June. That is all. Stephanie's submitting because I told her she was.
And worst case scenario, you can go and volunteer and still be part of it. And Jeff will
In
still
worst
let
case, you can
know.
come volunteer and hang out. It is a really pretty, I'm biased, but it's a pretty good time. It's a pretty good show. We've been doing it a long time. Anyway, that was my shameless plug. Now I'll switch hats back. Next topic.
Office hours. We're spinning office hours back up. So we've done office hours in the past. I'm not sure if anyone on the call has ever really even like attended the office hours sessions, but they're normally done on Twitch, live stream. Twitch and YouTube is like normally folks from product and engineering that talk about what's coming up next, or like, certain things that they're working on, maybe some demos and, like passing down information, right? So in the past, we haven't gotten a whole bunch of interaction. Normally we'll field some questions from the community, see kind of what's going on in the various community channels and ask questions to the teams on the show. But what I want to know is what type of things could we do in addition to like the things that I just stated, just kind of having, like an update, if you will. What kind of things could we do to bring more value and to possibly get a little bit more interaction from folks? And I guess maybe like you might need some time to think about it, and that's cool. But they're going to be spinning up over the next couple of months here. And we just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way, setting ourselves up for success versus putting out content that folks don't care about.
And could I add one thing to that question? Not just like what kind of content, but also when we had our internal weekly community guild meeting yesterday, one of the questions was just what personas present from our end, right? What is most valuable to the community, to you all, and to our user base in an office hours in terms of, do we want to see engineers in our office hours? Is it product people talking about roadmap in the office hours? Is it our like solution architect people talking about more built out solutions? Like, is it, I see Lyra's face. So it sounds like you have an opinion. Engineers.
All the time.
Engineers
all the time.
But like the good ones though.
So then what types of things though would you like to see presented then from the engineers?
If there's a way to capture it, figuring out what like the biggest pet peeves or like your most Googled problems. So like there's a lot of things like where like I find myself Googling, stuff with Chef Automate, Chef Infra, and like there's times when they're just like the docs are vague, real vague. And there was one more recently that I couldn't find anything about and had to like venture off into like a rabbit hole to try and figure out what was going on. but like trying to figure out like, okay, a list of, you know, like biggest pet peeves or things that are very, very common to run into. And then having engineers available and like talking through, hey, we noticed that you guys have this problem often. Here's how to avoid it, and here's how to recover from it. Here's how to like address that from a couple different angles. And then having the engineers who either worked on it or are the SMEs available to like ask questions and like confirm or like basically go into more detail if needed. But I feel like that, at least from my perspective, that would be really valuable as like a person who deploys stuff
For sure.
often.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Definitely appreciate that, Lyra.
Like find all of the pain points for your like not all of them, I guess, but like a pretty big, a decent sized set of pain points of like, you know, common problems, common pet peeves, and then annihilate them, make them not a problem, and be able to present it in a way that's like, hey, you know, that thing that you were having a problem with, I have a fix for it. And then I feel like that would be really useful. At least I would enjoy seeing that. That would be neat.
Cool. So that would probably be something we could find on between like Slack and Discourse, especially Discourse. We're able to like index through that data pretty easily, at least a lot easier than Slack.
Yeah.
So those questions that come up on Discourse that are like, that come up over and over again.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or ideas where that's concerned, where office hours are concerned? Cool. So lastly, we are working on our community website. It's community.chef.io. And one of the things that we'd like some input or feedback on is how we can make our website better. So we kind of got a prompt from our web strategy person, right? That, you know, like it might be, it's not like news to us that we need to update our website, but we want to make sure that we're doing it with the right ideas in mind, right? Like we're thinking that we want our website to kind of be like a portal to show where we interact, because folks aren't generally interacting on our website per se. But what we have currently, and we got a couple of minutes, I could go ahead and share my screen. One moment. That's kind of what we have. But I do think there's room for improvement for sure. And over, you know, between now and next meeting, maybe we can have some, if, you know, anybody has time to just kind of go and look. Can everybody see my screen? Just
Now I can.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Just kind of help us to figure out what we could do to make this better. We do know we're not doing live streams anymore. So we will need to remove like the live stream types of
Well, office hours will be live streamed through Twitch, right? Once we start back up.
Yes.
That'll be a different topic.
But
If
yeah.
you hover over that Twitch link though, on the bottom left-hand corner, it'll show you it links to Chef Software. Is that still y'all's Twitch?
Click that.
Oh, yes, that is. So, yep.
Do you guys still
we go
have access to that?
Hmm?
Do you guys still have access to that? Because that, I thought the like Because I hadn't seen any new content on that for like,
We haven't
There
done,
hasn't been.
there hasn't been any live streams in months.
okay,
And so office hours are going to be live streamed, so we will start having content there. But yeah, we haven't done any new live streams in months, so that's why it's kind of been quiet. But I mean, I guess this one just has feature live streams in general. So we could talk about, or we could make it more office hours specific to make it, you know, a little bit more, you know, to kind of be
Well-
more specific for it.
So here's one question, right? Because it's not just what we need to add to make it better. One thing we were talking about, so just food for thought for you all. And again, like Kaya says, we don't need answers today. It's just as you're thinking about it, and it can be out of band too. We don't have to wait till next month. Just if you're thinking about something,
Yeah.
pop it in the advisory council channel or shoot me and Kaya a DM or whatever you're thinking. But it's not just what do we need to add, it's what should go away, right? Like we have quite a bit of leeway, I think, at the moment to just sort of tell the web team internally, like, here's what we need, like scrap all this stuff. We don't want this, you know, stuff here, or these things belong on like the main www Chef.io site, not the community site. Like that's what, like one thing we talked about already internally is all of the stuff about like specific tools and enterprise projects, like that doesn't belong on the community site, like that belongs on the main site. And so we're also totally open to slimming down the site
oh, I see.
and only focusing on pure community things. It's whatever we can kind of do with what we want. And if we want to make it pure community and like I said, a portal to the places where people communicate and just updates and news and information about very pointedly community specific programs, that is fine.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just, you know, we can have dialogue about it in the community advisory council channel. If, you know, there's some things that come up, or yeah, you could just DM one of us, but that's something that's a project that we're getting started. And we just kind of wanted to get some feedback from you guys to make sure that we are representing our community correctly. You know, we want to be able to make sure that we are capturing the audience that we intend to and delivering value to that audience using this site.
Are we gonna get through that entire agenda before 1 p.m., before 2 p.m. Eastern? Because like, wow.
Think we are. That was it.
Wow. That is actually kind of great. Other thoughts, questions, other topics we didn't talk about? Yes, ma'am.
How about the training stuff and the Learn Chef stuff? I know that you guys were saying that you had a team that was working on overhauling that, and I'm still really interested to hear how that's going, and kind of where we're at.
Dan was that in December when no one was around, or was that November? When was Dan here? It might have been in December.
December.
You came on, but I think you came on late in December, maybe you had something going on and then you joined partway through. So Dan Choquette is in charge. The docs and certifications in today's world anywhere are outside of like Kaya's and my team. But yes, we're working on them. Dan Choquette is the guy inside Chef who is working on the certification programs. He did give an update on one of the recent meetings. It might have been, but it was at the very beginning, and it might have been last month. I'll check. If so, I'll make sure that you have a link to the video to see that. And
Well, I think I was in the meeting. I was just wondering if there were any updates, because you said
okay.
they were starting to get working on stuff, and I was like, oh, like if you need someone to like look over material or like be a guinea pig, like I'd love to hear how it's going and when you might need that.
okay. I don't have info on that unless Kaya does, but I can ping Dan and let him
Yeah.
know that there's interest from our advisory council to get involved. Yeah, I'll
We
remind
need
him.
beta testers.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I
I-
remember him talking about, I remember that. I do remember talking about, okay, yes, I will follow up with him and just see where it stands. I have not heard any updates on it, so I will see where that is. and then reconnect him with the two of you. And anyone else.
Sweet.
What else on this Thursday afternoon? Or evening in Carl's case and Patrick's case? Going once,
Wow.
going twice. We did, it is 12:59 Central Standard Time and we did it.
We did. We
All
did.
right,
Look, that was, I call that a successful community advisory council meeting, y'all. When's our next one?
next one, second Thursday of January, whatever that is,
February. So,
February.
Yeah, let's see.
And then because we're starting to actually execute on some of these things now in a little more meaningful way, hopefully there will be some like out of band conversation in between now and then in the Slack channel. So like if we get news about the community summits or we start kicking things off and needing advice or help with any of the like the office hoursy things and that stuff, maybe keep an eye on the channel in Slack a little more than it has been. I know up until now it's been like we talk and then Kai and I and the teams go off and do things and we talk to you again the following month. But I'm hoping as we start moving on some of these things that we have some sort of text dialogue chat in between too. So be on the watch for that. I wanted to keep talking just to make sure I made us a minute late. But okay, that is all I have. Love you all as always. That's
One
it.
note,
Yes, ma'am.
I've been looking at the website. You're right under the community meeting thing. It says Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time.
Yes.
Is that
Return.
accurate?
Pacific. So
That's
yeah,
accurate.
it's Eastern time, 12 p.m.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
so
is
that's-
it one
that's the
Thursday a
text
month
meeting.
or is it every Thursday?
It's every
Every
Thursday.
Thursday.
That's the text only meeting in community Slack, I assume is what that's
Okay.
about, right?
Right. And
Maybe
you
that
know
needs to be
what?
clarified though.
Yes. Yep. Slack community meeting. And then we could probably also put something about this community advisory council to call it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could differentiate between the two.
Yeah. 'cause
That's the
it's
other thing,
hovering
like this
over
has
the-
been a really good like core group, and I know there's a handful of others who come some months and not others. Like the people who are on this month have really generally been pretty solid. And I don't want to get to a thing where we start designing by committee, right, and have like way too many people. But also I don't want it to be exclusive where other people feel like if you weren't here at the start, you can't join. So I know like Lyra joined last month, Stephanie, right? But like if there are ideas for people who you think would also be valuable and who would get value from being a part of this, like let us know and invite them to join. It does not have to just be this group. Like I'm happy to grow it and have other people share their ideas, both in the Slack channel and in the meetings. It hasn't become unwieldy yet, so you know.
Cool.
Now we are 2 minutes over, but we can stop recording and let you all go, and we'll see you all next month and hopefully talk sooner than that.